Hi, everyone. This is Wanda Vitale, and I'm the founder of the Empowered Empaths. I am just so happy you're here. You're an empath, my people. Listen, I want to talk today about something that I'm seeing a lot with my clients, and it's just really part of what's happening in the world. And that is there a problem in your life that just won't go away? It could be a health issue, could be money, income, could be a relationship issue, could be a problem with your work, or it could be all of the above. And you've likely said affirmations, meditated, you've taken massive action, and no matter what you do, nothing really changes. It may get better for a while, and then there you are again. It really just feels like coming up against a wall that doesn't budge. I know, I understand this. Right now, there's so much fear in the world that all of us feel anyway. And that's one of our superpowers. We feel everything. It's really how, as empaths, as sensitives, highly sensitive people, we can help, right? Other people, because some people would rather have their fingernails pulled out than to feel. And we can't heal what we don't feel. But it's not what's happening out there in the world that is causing our challenges. It's something else that it makes us come toe to toe with this big challenge. And it's really an invitation. I find that many people, actually all the people that I work with, know intellectually that there's a higher power, that you may know that there's God or source. You may know that you are the quantum field. You may understand the dynamics of the vortex. But I find with just about everyone, it's just an intellectual understanding. And what happens, and is happening more and more with more people, is that we come face to face with this thing that no matter what we do, it just doesn't budge. And so there's this deep, deep fear or worry. When the chips are down and situations seem impossible, most people are just trying to fix the problem with action and logic, right? Been there. I used to be there. And when action and logic don't work, we worry. We can't sleep. We're projecting the worst. What if? What if? Well, I understand this because I went through this. For those of you who haven't heard about my own life, in my mid-50s, I left my marriage, and we were business partners. And I announced that I would rather live in a tree than endure one more day in this relationship that truly turned me inside out. There was nothing good about it. So I left the marriage. It was after the real estate crash, and we own land and houses and all kinds of stuff all over the country. And then the market crashed, and suddenly everything that I had worked for during my corporate years, all that money that I had invested and all that property was gone. I left the marriage with 7 foreclosures. I quip now that I would have filed bankruptcy, but I didn't have the money. So if that wasn't enough to get me to face my worst fears, a few years later, I was thrown off of a ladder. Somehow I, managed to keep going because there was no money from the divorce, just debt. And I had managed to keep going, create income, and then came an accident. and I couldn't walk. I couldn't even sit up for months. I had no money. I couldn't go back to software, which is what I did when I was younger. Was too old and out of it. I didn't know what to do. It just felt like death. It felt like I was in front of a firing squad. And in fact, I had a recurring dream at the time that I was standing in front of a firing squad. And in the dream, multiple times, I would wake up just before the guns went off. And then finally, in the last time I had this dream, there was somebody standing in my dream about 6 feet from me with a gun pointed at me. I just knew in that moment I couldn't squirm. It was useless. And in the dream, my body went limp. My fate was sealed. There was nowhere to go. There was absolutely nothing I could do. In the dream, the gun goes off. There's a lot of smoke. Loud bang. And in the dream, I looked down and I still have a body. I wiggled my fingers and I thought, what is going on? And then I look straight ahead at the person with a gun, and this time it was a pistol, actually. And out of the barrel of the gun was a flag that said bang. True story. When we come toe to toe with our deepest fear, which is what's happening for so many people right now, it feels like we're just going to explode. At the time, I considered suicide. When the accident happened, I was in my very late 50s, and I had no family, no income. Because of the accident, I couldn't work. I'd been a manufacturer's rep in technology, and I literally was down to nothing. My electric bill was more than the money I had in the bank account. So my mind went crazy. And not only my mind, but my body went crazy. I could not get out of the loop of fear. Because when we're in that loop of fear and worry, then what do we attract? We get more ideas that are fearful and worrisome. The anxiety wouldn't go away. I had no idea what to do. So while I did consider at the time suicide, I have this really squishy relationship with time. I remember other timelines, what you would probably call lives, past lives, and I've seen them. And I've seen a lot of them, and a lot of them were just bad. And I knew at the time that this was something, that this big fear was something that my soul decided that it was just time to face it. And so I did what I'm inviting you to do. And it's an overused word, and it's intellectual, and it's called surrender. Most people believe that surrendering is giving up, but that's not what it means at all. I just want to get into this, unpack this some. Surrendering is when we understand, not just understand, but when we know in our bones that there's a power greater than ourselves. Great, and who's ourselves? Greater than our mind, greater than the ego. Because the ego believes it's separate. The ego operates in fear. We're to look for fear, but it's fear from our body so that we don't step in front of an oncoming car. But it's not about the other stuff. Look at the world. Most people in the world are terrified. Most people believe that something's going to save them. Someone is going to save them, but basically This is just the state of the world right now that feels powerless. And we feel powerless because we believe we are our logical mind and that we can't trust anything else. So if you're coming up against this big problem that just will not go away, this is your invitation to move past it. We each operate from one of several core programs. So it might be something like, no one hears me, no one cares about me, life isn't safe, I'm powerless, I'm unworthy, I'm unwanted, nobody wants me. One of the tools I use with my coaching clients is the Enneagram. And if you're not familiar with the Enneagram, you can take a free test to determine your type. You're one of 9 different types, and you can find your strengths as well as these these lens that we set up for ourselves, a lens of limitation that we set up so that we could move through them. But these lens of limitations really color our world, and they're so deep that we don't deal with them until it's big. Now, I waited a long time. I had lots of opportunities in my life, in my 30s, in my 20s, in my 30s. I had lots of opportunities to understand this, that there's something greater than me that I could absolutely lean on. But most people don't know that, or we would have no anxiety. There would be no worry. And so right now, as the world is going through a big transition, we're being invited to move beyond this operating as a separate ego. And so these unsolvable problems are coming up. I see this as an initiation. And if we were raised by a shaman, it would be. But we weren't. Nobody told us that we would go through some very difficult situations in our lives. But it was a portal or an initiation into understanding our true power. Nobody prepared us for this. And that's why we see what we see in the world. So much criticism, so much harshness, so much fear. So if you're listening to this, then you might be in that invitation of understanding that you're not your mind and that you are so much more. And I'm going to talk about, when I went through it, what my guides told me, and it's something that you can use. We are here to learn to dance with creation, with the universe, with the rest of us. You are the universe. As Rumi said, you are the universe in ecstatic motion. But that's not how most people live. Most people live as separate, fearful. I want this and I have to make it happen. Most people operate from this core sense of powerlessness, as I did. One of my friends came in wide awake. I didn't. And so for her, and for any of you who might be listening, who know people who came in wide awake, they didn't go through this like I did and like you might be. We're here to learn that we can lean on, not just trust or hope. I hate that word, hope, because there's doubt in it. But we're here to actually lean on the rest of us. Lean on Source, the universe, God, whatever your word is, to lean on that and to know that when you say, I want this experience, you can allow the universe, source, your higher mind to lead the way, to point you in the direction and give you intuitive hits. Go here, do this, talk to so and so. But most people don't live this way. I live this way now. When we lean on the unseen as us, life is so easy. Things just show up out of the blue. Out of the blue. Ideas land that create abundance for you. Ideas land that add value to the world. I mean, I'm a firm believer that all of us who are empaths are here to change the world because we feel everything. So we're like the canaries in the mine when they used to put canaries in the coal mine, that if the canary keeled over, there was noxious gas. Well, we're the feelers that say, here's fear. Okay, here's fear. What story do I have going on? Here's doubt. What am I telling myself? What would I like to see instead of this? We're here to alchemize these feelings, to get to turn ourselves inside out, to feel it all, and to choose what we would prefer. So when we lean on source, the universe, your higher mind, whatever your word is, there's no anxiety at all. It's really an incredible way to live. I am always stunned still after these years, knowing how it works. I am forever thrilled and amazed at how things show up. Collaborations. Someone just reached out to me to collaborate on a book. And he said, I've been dreaming about you. And then your information has been coming up in front of me. And I've been saying it's really time to get going on that book. So do you see how this works? How carefree life can be? This is what's on the other side of that wall that won't seem to move. What do? I'll tell you what my guides told me when I was in the thick of it. As I said, when my electric bill was more than the money I had in the bank, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I still had a full leg brace on and couldn't walk. And I had a diagnosis that said, no, you're not going to be able to walk normally. And I am someone who used to do 20-mile hikes. I do 10-mile hikes now. So what do? I got still. So first of all, get still. Quiet your mind. My guides said, so I got still enough that I could hear my guides intuitively. I've never heard trumpets. Some of you might. But my guides said, give us the ball. And I said, what? What are you talking about? Like, I am a really logical, practical, smart woman. In my corporate days sold national accounts, multi-million-dollar deals. Like, give me a good project to do, right, to handle. So, but my guide said, give us the ball. And I thought, what are you talking about? And they gave me this image of me clutching this very big, hard basketball against my solar plexus. And isn't that what stress feels like? I mean, it may be in your heart. Maybe that's where you feel it the most. But typically, for me at the time, my whole body was tied up in knots. And it was like I was holding this big, hard basketball against my midsection, and the tension wouldn't leave. And they said, you've got to give us the ball. And so I would literally imagine taking that big hard basketball that was pressed up against me, and I would imagine offloading the ball, and I could feel my body relax. And every time I started to worry about it, because I had no idea where the money was going to come from. I thought I was going to be in the street because that was my worst fear. So every time I started to think about the problem again or worry about the problem again, I gave them the ball over and over and over, sometimes 50 times an hour, every minute. I didn't understand then the neuroscience of it. I incorporate neuroscience in my coaching, but I didn't know that then. And this is brilliant, because what is surrender? Surrender is just this. We're hanging on to that ball. Oh, I got to figure out this problem. I got to figure it out. I got to figure it out, or bad things will happen. I got to figure it out. But most of you know that the energy of the problem and the energy of the solution are different. So we have to give the rest of us, or source or God or the universe, whatever your word is, we have to offload that worry, the problem, and say, here, take this, solve it. So that's what I did. And I kept doing it. And it got easier and easier. And that's the neuroscience of it. Most of us, dare I say all of us, have these deep, deep fear-based systems, operating systems, that we've never fully transcended. And we get close to it, like things might be really bad in a relationship, and then it gets better. Then you're like, and then you're on to the next thing. Or it may be that way with health or money. My challenge was money because of my money beliefs and security. It was really security. Money for me was security because I felt like I never had any. So, but the neuroscience of it is, as we continue to handle things differently, here, take this, figure it out. Here, take this, figure it out. We are literally laying down new neural pathways. We are laying down new patterns in our brain, in the brain and in our nervous system. So that what happens eventually is, when there's a problem, we don't freak out. We say, this is interesting. Oh, this is interesting. I wonder how this is going to work out. And you give it to the rest of you. Nobody taught us that we have an outward-facing ego and an inner-facing ego. These are my terms. They're terms that Jane Roberts channeled in the 60s, 70s, and 80s used. And I love those. I love those terms. Most of us rely on our logic, which is our outer-facing ego. And it's great. It makes sure that your body is safe, but it is not equipped to handle these problems. And so right now, if there is something in your life that seems like no matter what you do, it won't go away for good, I would invite you to surrender emotionally, physically. You have guides. They are aspects of you. Some of you work with angels. They are aspects of you. Give them the ball. When we're challenged and these old core wounds are coming up and we're in fear, our guides can't get to us. The solution can't get to us. We're in a different TV station. We've got to turn to the TV station of being open and receptive. So then we can hear the messages. we might hear, call so and so, do this, here's an idea. And what I see with so many people, including my clients, is that these deep, deep core things are coming up right now because it's time. It's just time for you to stop playing small. It's time for you to live with ease. I can honestly say that as much as fear used to plague me for decades, I have no fear. And if I have fear, for me isn't even really what most people call fear. It is really, I know, telling me that it's excitement. Something else is coming and I'm getting out of my comfort zone, which is good. I believe that you're here to have big, audacious dreams. And the only way that those dreams can come to fruition is if you go through this deep, deep surrender. Because after you do, after you stand in front of that firing squad, the guns go off and you're still around, and that you're not worried anymore, your life takes off like a bullet. That's when you really dream and things show up. So I would invite you right now, the next time you start to worry, give it to your guides. Give them the ball. Start to create new neural pathways in your body and brain. You're creating new patterns of responding to life. And understand that you are the universe in ecstatic motion. And that on the other side of this worry and fear, and on the other side of not trusting life or you, which is really what's going on, everything is possible. Everything. Life is so much fun and it's easy and there's no worry. You point to something and say, this could be better. I'd love this. And then the way for it to happen shows up. Either lands in your lap, or it could be an idea. It happens in so many ways. But the key is to learn that you can really trust and lean on life. That source isn't some impersonal thing out there that maybe you can trust it and maybe you can't, or maybe source doesn't know that you have rent to pay, or source doesn't know that you need a job. That's what I used to think. But it's absolutely knowing that source is you, that it's not some far off thing, that it is you. Call it your inner ego. It knows exactly what you want, and it is waiting to bring you solutions. Just waiting for you to stop the fretting and the doing and trying to fix circumstances, because that doesn't work. It's waiting for you to give up that ball. And that means no more worry, like take this ball. And I'm not going to think about it. I'm just not going to think about it. And when you start to think about it, give them the ball. Give them the ball. Let me know if this helps, friends. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm telling you, I'm trying to seduce you into a life of ease without worry, really into a life without even concern, where you just are like a little kid pointing to candy at the candy store, saying, I'd love this. I'd love to do this. Because it can be this way. And I'm not talking about cars and houses. It can be. But what I know is that you're here to make a difference in the world. You're here to impact others. You're here to create this new world that we're moving into. That's what it's really about. You're here to have a meaningful and fulfilling life. And yes, you can have the cars and the houses and all that stuff, but I can tell you nothing is better than waking up to a life that you love and that fills your heart. And that's why I know you're an empowered empath. Thanks for listening. If you haven't hit subscribe, do that, and I'll see you on the next episode.